My sister made fun of my cheap wedding by comparing it to hers, which was paid for by our parents, but now she blames me because I used my wedding fund to buy a house and she has to pay everything back. Right now, I want to tell you all the drama my sister has caused, a drama I am in no way responsible for. I have never seen someone as entitled as my sister take responsibility for anything in her life. She is completely determined to blame me for her bad choices because she thinks I should have advised her, simply because I didn't guide her properly the way an older sister is supposed to. And while she's not entirely wrong about wanting guidance, it's not like she ever wanted my advice. What she really wants is someone to blame because her life is a mess. Anyway, let me explain the situation so you can draw your own conclusions. My husband and I both think her logic is absurd, and we need someone to tell us just how unreasonable she's being. Basically, a year and a half ago I married my lifelong boyfriend, and we had a very small and intimate wedding. We don't regret it at all. Even if we could do it again, we wouldn't make it bigger. We'd keep the same guest list and stick to a small budget, not because we couldn't afford more, but because I prefer a small wedding with people who genuinely care about me over a huge one that sounds exhausting and expensive. Everyone has their own preferences, I'm not judging anyone. Since my husband and I had been together for so long, we didn't feel the need for an extravagant wedding. It was more a way to celebrate our union and continue with our life. And you can't celebrate an eternal union and then not have money to actually live that life, so we stayed within a reasonable and responsible budget, 2 words I'm not sure my sister has ever even read. Both his parents and mine offered to pay for the wedding, so we barely had to spend anything ourselves. That was another reason to keep things modest. Even though it was a gift, we didn't want to put my in-laws through a huge expense. To me, all of this sounds perfectly normal, but apparently not everyone thinks that way. Now, here's the thing, my parents always had 2 separate wedding funds, one for me and one for my sister. My father is a psychologist and my mother is a divorce lawyer, which meant we had a very comfortable childhood, and they're financially stable. My sister and I never had to worry about money growing up because we knew they had savings set aside for our future, including our weddings. Since I used very little of my fund, my parents told me they would save the rest for me so I could use it whenever I needed it. That was another big reason I was happy with a small wedding. It meant I hadn't burned through everything and could use the remaining money later. A few weeks ago, my husband and I finally decided it was time to use that money because we were ready to buy a house and become homeowners. The only reason we hadn't done it earlier was that our rental apartment was conveniently close to his job, and we didn't feel an immediate need to move. We had gotten comfortable. But that changed when I found out I'm pregnant. Within a few days, we decided we needed to move. It was perfect timing because my husband had just been promoted and put in charge of his company's other office in the city, so we started looking for houses in that neighborhood to be closer to his new workplace. We were incredibly lucky, everything lined up. The area is also relatively close to our friends and my parents. With all this going on, we knew it was the perfect moment to buy a house. We were about to become parents, so we might as well become homeowners too. I talked to my parents, they transferred the money to me, and with some of our savings, we bought a lovely little house in a beautiful neighborhood. The sale closed just a few days ago, and we announced it on social media along with the pregnancy news. My parents, and basically everyone else, are happy for us, except my sister. I don't know what got into her. Well, actually, I know exactly what happened, she's jealous. She's been acting ridiculous, accusing me of misleading her and making her look foolish for not guiding her properly. She says I should have told her to be careful with her money and save some instead of spending everything on her wedding. But here's the reality, she's only 3 years younger than I am. Someone that close to my age should have basic common sense, especially as an adult. You don't blow all your money on a wedding if you can't afford it. And trust me, she definitely can't. She has her own business, but it's not doing well. She makes handbags and shoes, but the quality isn't great. Not even I want to buy them because they're not durable and they're overpriced. She's been doing this for 2 years and, as expected, it's not going well. She's also been with her husband for almost 3 years. They married 6 months ago, and he doesn't help much either. At least she works and earns her own money, he depends entirely on her. I wish I could say he at least handles everything at home or takes care of the chores, but no. He just sits at home. And now he's trying to become a streamer. Before this, at least he pretended to work, even though all he ever did was get fired every 3 months. Naturally, my parents were not thrilled about this marriage, but for whatever reason, my sister was determined to marry him anyway. He's a complete freeloader, and he doesn't even do the housework, so she comes home from work and has to do everything while constantly complaining. I don't know what she saw in him, but that's not my problem. My problem is that she's trying to make her issues my responsibility. My sister is a very resentful and bitter person, and I think that's a big part of why she's so angry with me right now. But it's ridiculous because, honestly, I haven't even told you everything yet, and if anything, I should be the one upset with her, not the other way around. She's the one who came to my wedding and decided to mock everything just because it was small and we didn't have a big budget celebration. She made several inappropriate comments, cracked jokes, and made everyone uncomfortable. But I didn't say a word because I didn't think it was worth it, and also because I didn't hear any of it at the time. I wasn't paying attention. I only found out later when my friends and a couple of relatives told me. By then, I had already decided it wasn't worth bringing up because she would just get defensive and say it was a joke. She's always been like that. She makes hurtful comments about people, and when they get offended, which is completely reasonable, she tells them she was only joking and makes them feel foolish for being upset, as if what she does is normal. So I didn't say anything. I let it go. But I always knew she had plenty to say at my wedding about how hers would be different, bigger and better, and how she was going to take full advantage of the fund our parents had for her, unlike me. For some reason, she assumed that maybe I hadn't even received the wedding money our parents saved for me. I don't know why she thought that. Our parents have never shown favoritism, so I have no idea what made her believe that. But since I never talked to her about it, I never had the chance to correct her, and now she's using that against me, claiming I misled her into believing our parents hadn't bothered to save anything for my wedding. Even though I never said anything about it, she created her own story and then fell into her own trap. Anyway, that's one part of the problem. The other part is that she had a huge, luxurious wedding with the man she's now married to, and our parents ended up paying for everything. So naturally, she burned through her entire fund in one day. There's nothing left from it. And although our parents are financially stable, they've always made it very clear that money is important and that we must be responsible with our finances. They've never encouraged us to borrow money from them unless we're in an extreme situation. And anyone who knows my sister's circumstances would agree she's not in an extreme situation, she's in a situation she created through extreme foolishness. She knows her business isn't doing well and still keeps pouring herself into it. She also never insists that her husband contribute to household expenses, so of course she doesn't have the courage to ask our parents for money. Even if they ended up giving it to her, she knows she would get a long lecture because this mess is entirely her own doing. She won't admit it, but I know her well enough to understand what's really happening. Anyway, after my announcement, she called me. I thought she was calling to congratulate me, but instead she started a fight, saying everything I've already mentioned. She completely caught me off guard, which is why I listened to some of her nonsense. But once I snapped out of it, I told her this wasn't the place to take stupid calls and hung up. You'd think, well, OP's sister said what she wanted to say, got her frustration out, and that would be it. But no, she had more to say. She decided to tell me I was rude and disrespectful for hanging up and that I should apologize, at least for letting her believe certain things and making her think our parents hadn't set aside anything for me, which is why I had a small wedding. Basically, she blames me for her current financial problems and paints me as the bad guy for not guiding her, for not telling her that I saved a lot of the money I could have spent on my wedding so I could buy a house in the future. She claims that if she had known that was my plan, she would have done the same. And now she has to worry about paying rent every month. For 6 months she's been bragging everywhere about her wonderful, luxurious wedding, despite everything going wrong in her personal life, and somehow all of this is my fault. I don't understand it. I don't understand why she's being so ridiculous or how anyone could reach that conclusion. And part of me knows she's just taking her frustration out on me, but it's incredibly foolish of her to do that, especially in a situation like this. I haven't talked about this with anyone except my husband, but at the rate things are going, I might end up telling our parents if she doesn't stop, because in the last few days she hasn't stopped bothering me. She just keeps going. Ever since I made that announcement, she's been trying to call me, texting me, and even though I blocked her number, she's been using other numbers, probably from friends or whoever. Regardless, she tells me she's very disappointed in me. She accuses me of not being a good sister, of being jealous of her, and that's why I stayed silent while she made bad decisions instead of guiding her. This is already ridiculous, and I don't believe in running to our parents to complain, especially at our age. But I don't think I have any other choice at this point. The only other option here would clearly be to give her my house, because apparently I'm the cause of everything, and that would magically fix all the malfunctioning issues in her brain. The only thing holding me back is that I know for a fact my parents will definitely give her some kind of ultimatum, and that will probably get her into even more trouble. At this point, my parents are probably her only hope of getting out of her financial mess without outside help or without going further into debt. And knowing her, instead of apologizing, she'll probably make things worse. Her narcissism and pride will take over, and she'll end up ruining her relationship with our parents, which will push her even further into the hole. And no, I don't want that for her or for anyone. That's the only thing stopping me, because I know very well that my sister tends to sabotage herself, and then I'll feel guilty about it afterward, and I don't want that to happen. That's why I've been thinking about what to do. I've told her multiple times to stop, but she won't listen. She wants me to apologize, but that's where I draw the line. I'm not going to do it because I'm not wrong. I didn't do anything to her, and she's the one who should be apologizing to me. Even though she has been hurting me all this time, I still care about her, but apparently that's not enough. Anyway, would I be the bad guy if I complained to my parents about my sister's ridiculous behavior? Update 1. I talked to my parents because, well, I said I was going to wait to read the comments, but my sister pushed me past my limit. I told them everything that has been happening. That was yesterday. After listening to me, they told me they would talk to my sister and somehow get her to stop. And look, I know many people in the comments thought it was pretty childish of me to run to my parents the moment something went wrong, but I can't help it. Both my sister and I grew up very close to our parents. They are a huge part of our lives, and even now, although we're no longer children or teenagers, we have a relationship where we know they always want the best for us, and for that reason, we do our best to listen and take their advice seriously. So I know that if anyone can get my sister to stop bothering me, it's my parents. And she knows that too. And I guess she didn't expect me to go to them, because a couple of hours ago I received a message from her saying she wasn't going to text me anymore because clearly I'm a coward who can't face my own faults, and that's why I ran crying to our parents to complain about her. I don't know what she expected. It was pretty foolish of her to keep demanding an apology from the very beginning, knowing perfectly well I hadn't done anything wrong. I made it very clear that I didn't want to interact anymore or continue this, but she kept pushing. So naturally, I had to do something. And now she can't blame me for this. I just hope she actually keeps her word this time and truly stops writing to me, because I don't want this to drag on any longer than necessary. I still don't know how things went between her and my parents. I haven't had the chance to talk to them because I've been busy with work. But I'll call them in a few minutes and then post whatever I find out, because I know many people are waiting for an update. And honestly, this helps me vent, so why not? Anyway, see you soon. Thank you so much to everyone who commented on my previous post, to those who gave me advice, and to anyone who took the time to say something. It means a lot to me. Update 2. I talked to my parents a couple of hours ago, and this is what they told me. Naturally, I started by asking what conversation they had with my sister after I spoke to them. They told me that when they called her and confronted her with everything I had told them, she started denying it, obviously. They knew she was lying. They pushed a little harder, and eventually she admitted that yes, she had been doing everything she was accused of. But then she said it wasn't their business and that this was between her and me, that they didn't need to get involved because after all, we were both adults and could handle things on our own without our parents intervening. So naturally, my parents had to tell her that I had asked them to step in, and that they are also adults. If they feel they should intervene, they will, because no matter how old we get, we will always be their daughters, and if we're fighting, it's their duty as parents to help us resolve things. And it was clear she was going off the rails because that's not how normal people behave. They told her directly that she was being ridiculous, extremely entitled, and disrespectful, and that her own shortcomings aren't anyone else's responsibility. So she can't go around blaming others and making their lives miserable just because things aren't going well for her. She didn't know how to respond. She didn't expect them to be so brutally honest. She told them they were being horrible to her and apparently she was on the verge of tears. But they had to use tough love. They told her it was time to accept that her life wasn't turning out the way she expected, and that was completely fine. What wasn't fine was blaming others for her situation, because she created it herself. In fact, she didn't just create it, she was actively avoiding doing anything to improve it, and that was only making the problem worse. They told her that running away from things and refusing to face reality wasn't going to fix anything, it was only going to hurt her. And right now, she was hurt, so she was doing everything she could to hurt me too. That's what this was about. They were very direct and honest with her. They told her she was being extremely careless with her life and that it was time for her to recognize what she was getting herself into and do something about it instead of being resentful and making everyone else miserable, turning her problems into everyone's problems with her unreasonable behavior. Naturally, that was a very bitter pill to swallow and she didn't take it well. She started yelling at them, saying they were being unfair and that she knew exactly what their problem was, that they were only upset because she married someone she truly loved instead of marrying someone rich like they supposedly wanted. And let me tell you, that argument doesn't even make sense because my husband isn't rich. He doesn't come from a family like ours. His parents are in a pretty normal financial situation, and I love them, I get along very well with them. And my parents didn't have any problem with him or with his family. You know why? Because here's the difference, he isn't lazy like my brother-in-law. He's a hard-working man, honest, with integrity, and he would never fail me or anyone else the way my brother-in-law does. Naturally, my parents felt much more comfortable welcoming him into the family than my brother-in-law. And my parents told her exactly that. They even welcomed my husband's parents. My parents may have money, but they don't care about that in other people. The only thing they wanted from them was that they had raised a good son who would love me and protect me. And that's exactly what they did. As for my sisters-in-laws, I don't even know what to say. But my sister didn't want to listen. She kept yelling at them, insisting they were attacking her simply because she married someone she loved, and that they would never accept that. She said they just wanted an excuse to blame everything on her husband. And out of nowhere, she suddenly started saying she knew she should never have accepted the wedding fund, that she should never have taken that money because she should have known they would throw it in her face forever, and that they expected her to behave like some obedient little dog just because of that fund. That came out of absolutely nowhere, because my parents hadn't even mentioned anything about that. My sister is the kind of person who seems to need to invent enemies so she can feel like she's fighting against evil or something. She could walk down the street, see a baby look at her the wrong way, and convince herself it was the reincarnation of an ex-boyfriend just to justify hating that baby. Our parents also paid for our education, and they never threw that in our faces, so why would they do it now? It was clearly her own insecurities talking, and it shows. Anyway, the conversation did not go well. In the end, my parents told her they had already said what they needed to say, and that it was up to her whether she wanted to change her life or not. And if she didn't, that was her loss, not theirs, because they had already done everything they could to give her a good life. How she planned to create a good life from this point on was entirely up to her. They hung up and that was it. I have to say, she is making one stupid mistake after another, and I'm sure she's going to regret it. But it seems like she has already made her choice. I don't think there's anything I can tell her now. Whatever she does from this point on is her business. Update 3. It has been 3 weeks since my last update, and a couple of days ago I hosted a small party at my house. We invited a few friends and family members to celebrate the fact that we are finally homeowners. You could say it was a housewarming party and a baby welcome party all in one. Yes, we like to be economical. Honestly, we were just celebrating life because everything was going so well, and we wanted to commemorate it. We invited friends and family from both my side and my husband's. And when I say my side, it was basically my parents and not much more. I had no intention of inviting my sister, and even less my brother-in-law. And I want to take this moment to talk about my brother-in-law, because some comments say this is not my sister's fault, that the real villain behind everything is my brother-in-law. And maybe that's true. But she's the one who chooses to stay with him and behave the way she does. No one sent her to make those comments at my wedding. That was entirely her. She's in some sort of active competition with me to see who has the better life, a competition only she participates in. And that's why she's so angry with me, because maybe she won in the wedding category, but life kept going and she realized she's falling behind. Personally, I find that absurd. I've never competed with her, and I don't care who has the better life. Up until a few years ago, our relationship was pretty normal. We were both happy for each other's achievements, no matter how small. We talked every day and were friends. But people change for different reasons, and although we know exactly why she changed, it's not like I can save everyone. She doesn't even want to be saved. And I am not going to play hero. My sister says she's happy with her husband, and that's that. There's nothing we can do. But back to the party. My sister decided to host her own party at her house. I don't know what the theme was or what the occasion was supposed to be, but it was scheduled to start at the exact same time as mine. She posted pictures on her social media showing her friends and, I believe, some of my brother-in-law's relatives. At first, we didn't even know about this party until my sister took it upon herself to send the photos directly to my mother to show how much fun she was having without us. My mother showed me the message, but she didn't reply. Then my sister started pushing, "What's wrong? Does it hurt to know I don't need you? Did you think that because you gave me money I would be your little dog wagging my tail every time you said something?" My father got angry at her for talking to our mother like that and texted her from his own phone. "If you think our money is such a burden for you, you can start paying it back whenever you want. Between your wedding and your university education, we've paid $120,000. We can set up a payment plan that works for everyone." My father doesn't need that money, but he was fed up with my sister. She read the message but didn't respond, and she stopped sending party photos to my mom. I asked my father if that was actually the amount of money they had spent on her, but he said he wasn't sure, though the number sounded pretty close. At least it shut my sister up long enough for us to continue our party without annoying interruptions. My father didn't really expect her to pay anything back, he just wanted to put her in her place. I don't know what her end goal is, because if she keeps this up, she's going to make my parents demand every last cent, and if her life is bad now, it will be even worse with that kind of debt. I know she wouldn't care about my advice, but if she got rid of the deadweight and found a normal job, she would probably be 100 times better off. She might even find a decent man. Update 4. I have to write this update because even I can't believe everything that has happened over these months, both the good and the bad, because there's a bit of both. On the bad side, my sister went to my parents' house to confront them because she felt disrespected when they asked her to repay the money they had given her, since they weren't asking me to do the same. But just like I think, my parents told her she was ungrateful, and if she had such a problem with the money, she could give it back. It was a heated argument where my sister brought up favoritism, which makes no sense because the wedding funds were equal, we just used them differently. And the amount spent on university depended on which school we attended and the program we chose. They even spent a bit more on her because her university was more expensive than mine. My parents weren't going to force her to repay the money, but she let her pride speak and told them she would start paying them back to end her connection with them. She said that the day she paid the last cent, she would never speak to either of them again. That's going to take a long time, because although they agreed that $120,000 was a fair figure, she can only pay $500 a month. That's 20 years. But she has been paying it for these past months. The good part is that my sister is now divorced. She finally opened her eyes to who her husband really was and managed to get rid of him. She still has her business, but at least she found a part-time job that must be helping her earn enough to pay my parents. I think this part is good because she finally saw how she was ruining her life. But the decision she made regarding our parents is the bad part, because she destroyed her relationship with them just because she refused to admit she was acting terribly. She still doesn't talk to me, for obvious reasons, but cutting off our parents, who were nothing but reasonable, is extreme. And I know what people will say because I've already seen it in the comments, that it's my fault for involving them. But it's not like my parents wouldn't have found out anyway. It's very likely that during the party at my house, they would have received the photos she kept sending. And when they asked why she wasn't invited or why she was behaving the way she was, she would have had to explain, and they would have reacted the same way. So no, I don't see myself as the one to blame. Unless I put on my sister's glasses. Maybe in 20 years I'll come back and tell you my sister finally paid all her debts. Edit. If I'm doing the math correctly, counting from when we bought the house, give or take a month, my sister has been making payments for almost 2 years. She doesn't speak to me and barely speaks to my parents except to tell them she transferred her $500 for the month. That's all I can update. There are still 18 years to go.